Hasidic philosophy explains that aside from there being an actual human being who's designated as Mashiach to redeem the entire world, each and every one of us possess a spark of Mashiach within ourselves. In other words, in order for the ultimate redemption to come, it has to culminate from each and every one of us drawing out this spark from within ourselves and bringing it out to the world. As we spoke about in different classes, the Rebbe explains that the word for Geula, redemption, and the word for Gola, exile, share basically the same letters with the discrepancy of one letter. Gola, exile, is written Gimel Vav Lamed Hey. Geula, redemption, is written with those very same letters, Gimel Aleph Vav Lamed Hey. The only difference between exile and redemption is the Aleph, featured prominently in the middle of the word, which means it's the very same reality, but with the Aleph revealed right in and openly revealed itself throughout the entirety of the world. What's the Aleph? Aleph is Alufo Shel Olam, the master of the world, oneness. In that right now, we are living in a world which we all have faith and recognize as God's world and everything's divine providence, but often because of the worldliness, because of the concealment of the world in itself, we don't see it. When Mashiach will come, it will be visible that every aspect of the world is God's, and God reveals himself openly and overtly in every aspect of the world. For this to happen collectively over history, each and every one of us, individually as well as collectively, were strewn and throughout the entire world. We're disseminating exile throughout the entire world in every single geographical locale, with every single situations and so on and so forth, in order for us to draw that Aleph out into that scenario. Our sages tell us when Mashiach will come, he'll be riding upon a donkey. And this donkey has many colors to it. Why? Because first and foremost, the word donkey in Hebrew, chamor, is related to the word chomer, material, corporeality. Each generation has its corporality that it needs to deal with, its blockages that it needs to deal with in order to reveal that spark of Mashiach into that setting. Our sages tell us Mashiach will be riding upon the donkey, which means that the ultimate culmination of our work is that the spirit will be riding corporality and not that the corporality will be using the spirit. For this reason, we had to have gone through every and any scenario which corporality resisted and pushed and so on and so forth, but us through the Torah and the mitzvot and our self-sacrifice revealed in each generation that serving God, truthfully serving God with joy and happiness to the best of our ability is quite possible. But in revealing that, we didn't just merely reveal, we have completed the purpose of that corporality, which means we're not here to deny and escape the physical, but rather, as we learn many times, not to go to heaven, but to bring heaven into the earth. So each and every one of us was given a measure of earth, of corporality, of the world, of concealment. Bringing Mashiach out means in that concealment, rather than running away, mine and discover, just like when a miner looks for gold or for precious stones underneath the caverns of the earth, by digging and digging and digging, sifting and refining and so on and so forth, so too each and every one of us are meted out a portion of the world at a time and a space with people and situations in which we are meant to mine and discover that piece and bring it out. Ultimately, bringing Mashiach on an individual level means taking whatever limitations we have by design and utilizing that limitation to bring Mashiach. Each generation is giving its limitations. There was some which dealt with the the Inquisition and expulsions in Egypt and communist Russia and the Holocaust. We are given the ultimate challenge, which is an exile of comfort and affluence, an exile when no one's really chasing us. In other words, yes, right now there's a rise of anti-Semitism, but each and every one of us have it within our ability to serve God magnificently now, as all the resources are openly available for us: kashrut, schooling, shuls, mikvaot, and everything that our ancestors only imagined and dreamed of. But because of that, that could also become an impediment to service. The Talmud compares us to an olive, the Jewish people, that is, that the more you squeeze the olive, the more refined oil comes out. Historically, when we were pursued, our inner selves, the point of Mashiach, came out much more readily and much more brilliantly. When we're not being pursued, it's easier to fall into the luxury of comfort and, unfortunately, a further exile. One of our particular challenges of our generation, the color of the generation, especially specifically now, is identity as well as technology. And this is a culmination for thousands of years. And yet, in this generation, our aim is to bring redemption into luxury. And so we're giving luxury, but if we could look at it as a standalone or as an opportunity to draw the aleph into it. A group of students once entered, college students entered the private audience with the Rebbe, and not really knowing what Hasidus is, what a Rebbe is, they were taught by their shaliach, by the emissary who just recently passed away, that the Rebbe is a miracle worker. One of them turned to the Rebbe and says, "Rebbe, I heard you make miracles. You perform miracles." And the Rebbe smiled and says, "Not only I, but every one of you could perform a miracle." And one of the students says, "Really? How so?" He says, "Well, the difference between a miracle, as we recognize it, and nature, although they're both essentially miraculous, as they're both being created by God, but nature is a series of repetitive patterns and cycles, seasons, day and night, etc., etc. A miracle, as we usually recognize, is either the interruption or suspension of that nature. Well, according to my estimation, the Rebbe said, naturally, you have yet to put on tefillin, and especially on a regular basis. However, if after leaving this private audience, you go into the adjacent synagogue, which is right across from the Rebbe's office, and ask one of the students to put on tefillin with you, then you would have performed a miracle. In other words, you would have gone against your own nature, and that's a miracle. Torah teaches us that the world is a macro man, a macro human being, and the human being is a micro world. And one of the deep understandings from this is that everything that we view in the world, we possess within ourselves. Anything but that by divine providence, Hashem streams into the world, into our personal world, our families, their situations, the conflicts, and so on and so forth, actually mirror what we possess inside of us. And there's a reason for it, a divine reason, which is that in dealing with this situation within ourselves, we will fix this situation within ourselves and in the world, will reveal the Aleph, how this is not in conflict of God, but this gives me the ability to serve God on a whole different plane. It's one thing to be able to serve God when everything's easy, Shabbat, Yom Kippur, when we're not bogged down by the world and the worldliness. But that's not necessarily an accurate depiction of service, because what if the world will become resistant, or our world will become resistant? What if it's not Shabbat and not Yom Kippur? What if it's a Tuesday afternoon? What if it's not in kosher heaven like Great Neck, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan? What if it's in the middle of nowhere where there's no kosher? Can we still serve God? Is God still true? We know that the entire purpose of creation is to synergize, harmonize the heavens and the earth. By utilizing the corporality, by working on it, by removing its incrustation, its resistance to a spiritual tone, and drawing its ultimate spirituality outwards from within itself to reveal its true purpose. The world calls it mind over matter or spirit over material, however we call it. This is our service. Tikkun olam, to fix the world, means to notice the olam, the world, the concealment that resides outside of us. And each one of us notices a piece of this world in order to rectify it. And in rectifying our personal concealment, we're not just keeping it local, because by rectifying the concealment that we are privy to, whether it's genetic, epigenetic, intergenerational trauma, or any setting that will prevent us from serving God with joy and happiness of the heart, the aim is to be able to fix it. But when we fix it, it's not just fixing it. When we address and fix this particular situation, we actually fix presently and retroactively every person, every scenario, every experience that brought this concealment into our lives. And that's our service of bringing Mashiach. Today, the Rebbe says our aim of bringing Mashiach is no longer just refinement. That was done collectively over all of history, through all of our lives, all past lives, and so on and so forth. In today's service of bringing Mashiach is to understand that the Mashiach is already here, that the world is already metamorphosized and ready and willing and able to accept this. As we see, even science speaks about energies and so on and so forth, things that only 100 years ago was chalked up to science fiction or mysticism, but it wasn't a reality. And today's science says, no, this is reality. This entire world is energy, vibrations, and frequencies, etc., etc. This is a culmination from all of our service with Torah and Mitzvah through all the generations, that the world now is revealing this. I'm not obstructing it, it's part of the revelation. Our aim today, as the Rebbe explains in Bring Mashiach, is to accept that Mashiach is here and to live like that. In other words, to be able to serve God openly, magnificently. As right now, anybody who wants to keep kosher, unlike the previous generation, could keep kosher to the highest measure, and still the food tastes amazing. We have enough money to give tzedakah. We have so many Jewish schoolings to send our Jewish kids to. When previous generation and certain locales, kids would sometimes have to literally learn underground, under threat of being arrested, etc., etc. There's choice of mikvaot both for women and for men. When previous generations, some places they would have to break ice to go to mikvah. In other words, in today's world, everything's openly available for us. Even learning Torah, where in previous generation, one would need to know how to read and understand Hebrew and so on and so forth. Through the previous Rebbe's initiative and our Rebbe's development and exponential growth, today the previous Rebbe initiated that Torah should be translated to all languages. discourses in Hasidus will be will be translated to spoken languages. But in our generation, with the internet, with Chabad.org, Yesh.com, and all those, and the app Safari and all those types of apps, today, even if one does not know how to read Hebrew, Torah is readily available in their spoken language with explanations, and commentaries are translated to Hebrew. In other words, there are no more impediments for us to serve God openly, joyfully, and happily. It's just that we've built up muscle memory of exile, patterns and cycles of nature within ourselves. But the reality is, bringing Mashiach today means to bring that part that's able to transcend the corporality and write upon it. In other words, utilize it. Utilize all that's given in a magnificent way.